They approached him at his house. They knocked on the door, asked him, "Do you know what this is about?" And he said, "April Tinsley." So this is April Tinsley. She's the cutest little thing, right? She was born on March 18th of 1980 and lived in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And she was described as a very sweet girl, very well liked in school, just kind of a little angel. Her mom said she was just a really fun-loving person and that everyone she knew adored April. At the time, April was in first grade. And coincidentally, it was April 1st, 1988. She had gotten out of school early that day. She came home, hung out with her mom a little bit, had lunch, and then she asked if she could go over to a friend's house to play. So April's mom, Janet, said, "Of course, you can go. Just call me as soon as you get there." So when April got to Nicole's house, she called her mom, let her know that everything was good, and her mom reminded her to be home between 3:30 and 4-ish. And she was normally really good about coming home when her mom said to. She specifically wanted her to come home because it was cloudy and it was going to rain. By the time 4 p.m. rolled around, April had not made it back home. So her mom kind of waited a little bit, but then eventually just called Nicole's mom. And she told her that April and Nicole were playing at a playground, and they left this playground a little after 3 p.m. And as she was just about to start heading home from the park, she realized that she had left her umbrella at Nicole's house. So Nicole actually was going to a different friend's house, so they kind of parted ways there, and then April made the walk by herself back to Nicole's house. However, Nicole's mom said that she never made it to the house to get her umbrella. So this is when her mom started to panic. So her and her husband and a bunch of friends and neighbors went out and looked for her physically. And after they didn't find her, Janet called the Fort Wayne police. And when the officers arrived, she tried her best to describe everything that she was wearing that day. She was wearing a blue turtleneck sweater, a pink and red jacket, light blue pants with 3 hearts on the left leg, and pink shoes. Detectives went out looking for April. They looked in a 20-block area from where she was last seen, but they didn't find anything, and they weren't able to come up with any explanation or any answers, so they assumed that she had been abducted. On April 4th, and this was 72 hours after she had gone missing, a police task force of 25 Fort Wayne officers joined up with a search party that was formed by civilians that already had 50 people in it, and they began to look all over this area. But then around 3:30 p.m., a man was on a jog, and he was just running along when he saw a body. It was off the side of the road about 40 feet away in a ditch, and unfortunately, this was April's body. So now obviously this case has taken a tragic turn, and based on the physical evidence, police believe that April was sadly suffocated. She was fully clothed except for one of her shoes was missing. Detectives also think that because her body was just kind of like set on the ground 40 feet from the road, it's not like he tried that hard to hide her, and it seemed to them like he wanted someone to find her body. Officers searched the surrounding area, and that is where they found her other shoe. It was about 800 feet away on the opposite side of the road. And they basically think that the person was driving away, realized that her shoe was in the car, and threw that out too on their way out of the scene. But then on April 5th, a motorist came forward and said, "I saw a blue truck just kind of chilling on Declib County Road." And there was also a reward set up by 2 local radio stations. 2 different funds, one for the Tinsley family and one for her burial, were opened. On April 8th of 1988, 150 mourners gathered at the Faith United Methodist Church for April's memorial service. And soon after that, a witness called the police and let them know that she had actually seen a little blonde girl walking on the side of the road. She had hearts on her pant legs, and she was walking where April was last seen. And the witness said that when April tried to cross the street, someone in a blue pickup truck pulled up next to her. April didn't seem to be scared or look like she didn't know this person, so she figured everything was okay. She basically just said that she saw the truck pull up, and then the truck and April were gone. And she really thought it was an arranged pickup. A lot of us have seen, you know, people getting picked up by people. You don't always think to call the police. The witness described this driver as a white male in his 30s with blondish, sandy-colored, wavy hair who weighed about 150 pounds. People in Fort Wayne were really freaked out, thinking that there was a potential killer on the loose. And when that sketch was released, a ton of tips and information came into the police. And many of these leads had mentioned a man named Moose. Basically, Moose was in a local gang, and he looked really similar to the sketch that was put out. The witness was able to pick out his photo from a lineup of pictures. But that was really it as far as evidence went. He didn't own a blue pickup truck, but he did have access to a blue pickup truck if he needed it. People were claiming that this Moose guy was going up to children at the park and saying inappropriate things to them, scaring them. And police were also told that the gang that Moose belonged to was some type of satanic cult. So investigators started to become concerned that maybe April was in some type of satanic ritual or sacrifice. And this obviously scared her parents so bad, but there really wasn't any evidence of this happening. It was a lot of speculation and hearsay. For weeks, Moose was the prime suspect in the case, but detectives were never able to find any physical evidence that linked him back to the crime scene. And at that point, they decided that he just couldn't be a suspect anymore. Now we're going 2 years forward to May 21st of 1990. Police received a call from this guy saying that someone had written a message on his barn. The message said, "I kill 8-year-old April Rudy Tinsley. Did you find her other shoe? Haha, I will kill again." And this note was found 10 miles from where her body was found. And obviously this could be some type of poser, but they thought that there was a lot of credibility here because they mentioned the shoe. This wasn't like hugely publicized, so it seemed like this really was April's killer. And then they looked at the note, which had a lot of spelling issues and grammar problems, as you probably noticed, especially the way they spelled again. Like, really, who's spelling it again? Police basically figured that this person was trying to seem like they were dumber than they actually are. And the case went cold again for 15 years. On March 25th of 2004, a little girl around the same age that April was when she was taken found a note. It was in a Ziploc bag and was on yellow paper. The note was like inside the bag, and it said, "Hi honey, I've been watching you. I am the same person that killed April Tinsley. Here's a present for you. You are my next victim." And as you can tell, this note had similar punctuation and grammar errors that the other one had. And this wasn't the only note that was found. There were 2 other notes that were found with the same message. Another note said, "Hi honey, I've been watching you. I am the same person that killed April Tinsley. You are my next victim." Everyone that was getting these notes, which was obviously scaring the living hell out of everybody, had young daughters between the age of 5 and 9. And police believed that this killer was stalking these children, and so they kept an extra watch on this whole area. And soon after this, a 4th letter showed up, and this time he included nude pictures of himself. It seemed like this person wanted to get caught. They left her body in a really weird spot, left that note, and when they tested all these packages, they all had DNA that was the same DNA that was found at April Tinsley's crime scene. It is actually April's killer. But the DNA didn't match anyone in the national database. They had no specific suspect, and at this point they were desperately trying to figure it out. So they ended up releasing some of these letters to the public. They hoped that this would bring up something, that someone would have an idea, and obviously the community was very concerned. Tons of tips came in, but one tip came in that was really important. It was someone who called and accused his own father of being April's killer. This man actually lived really close to where April lived and to where April was taken. He also used to own this Polaroid camera and would take pictures of random disturbing things. He also believed it was his father because he said his father would write "hi honey" and "ha ha," which are really general things, like a lot of people could have said that. But this young man's father also had a blue pickup truck, and a few days after April's murder, he painted the truck a different color. So they brought him in for questioning, and when he first sat down with investigators, he brought up the fact that he was working on the day that April was killed. Now, this is really weird to remember one specific day from 15 years ago exactly what you were doing. This was a major red flag to them, and they ended up following up with his employer and found out that he actually was not working on those days. He also wasn't working on April 4th, which is the day that her body was found and likely put there. So investigators did a huge search of his home and they found more evidence. They found a yellow notebook, which looked similar to the one that the person had written notes on. And they also found a Polaroid camera. At this time, they really considered this man to be the prime suspect, and they felt really confident that maybe they had found the killer and they could finally put this thing to rest. But unfortunately, they tested his DNA and it did not match any of the DNA from any of the evidence and the crime scene. So now they were back to square one. On June 24th, 2005, the family had like a little press conference trying to update people on the case and just remind people that it was still an unsolved case. And as time goes on, obviously technology is getting better in the crime world, and one of the new technologies is called phenotyping. And they basically use a DNA sample from the crime scene, and it creates a digital sketch picture of what the person would look like based on their DNA. So it's pretty incredible stuff. And after they ran the report, the results showed that this person was British or German, had brown hair, green or hazel eyes, and very fair skin. Investigators believed that the man was around 30 at the time of the attack. Thanks to new DNA technology and new developments in genealogy, they were finally able to track down April's killer. July 15th, 2018, John D. Miller, who was 59, was charged with her murder. And basically what has been happening nowadays is, you know, more and more people are spitting in the little tube for ancestry DNA or whatever, and there's a ton of different gene databases that have thousands of DNA records stored, and even if someone in your family has done one of these DNA tests, it can be traced back to you. A few weeks after they found the match, they went to John D. Miller's house, took some of his trash. Once the match was confirmed and they were positive that this man was the killer, they approached him at his house, they knocked on the door, asked him, "Do you know what this is about?" And he said April Tinsley. So as horrible as this whole case is, how heart-wrenching and terrible for the family, this family can finally know what happened, know that this person's gonna be incarcerated and justice will be served for April. But it certainly doesn't make up for all the time that April's family has spent without her, all the things that she was going to do in her life, maybe a future family that she was going to have that was all just shattered. Friends and family have set up a garden dedicated to April, April's Garden, and it's just kind of a place where they can remember her and feel her spirit and feel all the love that other people around her had for her. Stay safe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.